Hey Elaine, how you doing?
Hi, good, thanks, Jason.
So what we're doing today is we're just gonna have a conversation. I'm just gonna ask you some questions about the OP process and how you found it and what you thought about different aspects and things and where you had difficulty and stuff. So I'll just throw some questions at you and you just throw some answers out and talk about whatever you feel comfortable about and just let people know kind of what you went through and how you feel now that you're better from it. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Cool. So I always think the best place to start is just with your story. So how you developed OP, how long you had it for, what sports you were playing, just what you went through kind of before you started seeing me.
So I've always done a lot of sports. I've always done long distance running, and for about a period of 5 years, I was doing like an outdoor boot camp style fitness class, which I would do 3 times a week and go running an extra twice a week. So I was working out 5 days a week. Um, and they were pretty hardcore sessions. Like I always went flat out on every single session. Um, so yeah, I was doing lots of sports.
Just to
Um,
put this in perspective for people who are watching this, Elaine was doing something that was designed by the military. Sorry, keep going.
um, yeah, and then so I signed up to do a half marathon. I'd done one previously, which was fine, but this one I found as I started training, I started to get pain in my pubic bone and pain around my groin area. And I hadn't really increased my training distance very much yet. I was only at about 12K, and I was used to running 10K every week, so I hadn't really got very far. So I decided the best course of action was to just ignore it and carry on training for the race because I didn't want to didn't want to quit on the race.
I've never
And
heard
it
that
just
before. I've never heard that before. Sorry, keep going.
um, yeah. So as I continued to train, it just got worse and worse. I would feel the pain during when I was training, going out for long runs, and it would happen sooner and sooner during the run. But then I would also feel the pain, say in the evening when I'd been for a run in the morning, just kind of randomly sitting at home, I would suddenly feel my pubic bone start throbbing, which was a bit weird, and I didn't really understand what was going on. Um, the strange thing was that on on the race, I didn't actually have any pain. Um, and then weirdly, I went back to normal training straight after the race and it disappeared. But then a year later, it came back again. And this time it didn't disappear. And I could feel it just during my normal training, just during my boot camp classes. I would feel the pain sooner and sooner during that. And since it wasn't going away, I thought I probably ought to do something about it because I was just, in the end, I couldn't really do the 10K runs. I was just kind of limping round at the ends and wasn't much fun.
What did you try? Did you try anything or any other therapist or anything before you saw me, or what was your kind of like? What had you tried previously before you kind of found me?
Yeah, so I went through a wide range of therapists. Firstly, I just tried a physio who my running coach recommended. Um, she gave me a few exercises, and I stopped all exercise. I stopped running, and I stopped my boot camp classes. While she noticed some asymmetries between like when I was doing squats. Um, so she got me to sort that out, which I did all her exercises, and then tried to return to running again, and the pain was still there, so it hadn't fixed anything. I went through. I went and saw a private hip specialist. I went and saw NHS consultants. Some people thought I might have, what was it called? Like a labral tear or something. So I had CT scans, I had an MRI scan, and they couldn't really, they basically said all the scans were inconclusive. They couldn't say whether there was a labral tear there or not. And even if there was, then they probably wouldn't recommend doing anything about it. So, and during that time, I had also given up exercise again because it was just too painful. But then after a few months, well, maybe 3 or 4 months off, then I tried again. I started running again because they gave me an hydrocortisone injection into my hip flexor. So then I tried running again, and that hadn't helped at all. Yeah, I can't remember. Oh yes, I think I saw another few consultants who, well, yeah, the latest one, he said, oh, yeah, don't do any sport. Maybe you can try running again in about 9 months' time. I saw an NHS physio. He was very keen on me not doing any sport. He gave me very minimal exercises to do. That didn't work. Oh, and then I saw another private physio. I was doing lots of exercises for her, did some Pilates, but none of it really worked.
I think what you kind of described in there is this really common story with OP, which is this idea of that the medical community really wants you to rest, right? Like there's this inflammation in your pubic bone, and so it's like rest. You need to rest for this to heal. And then inflammation heals, but in the process of doing that, you just get weaker and weaker. So you feel good, you go back and you run or you do your activity, and because you've gotten weaker, that just makes it even worse. And it's like you just end up irritating and it gets worse, and you get into this cycle of rest, return to sport, pain again. Rest gets better, return to sport, pain again. And you just get stuck in this cycle going, and it's almost like you progress and get worse, not because you're damaging the area, but just because you're getting progressively weaker as you take more and more stuff out of your life. Is that kind of what it felt like?
Yes, definitely, because every time I tried to restart exercise, it felt like the pain would come back a lot sooner. So the first time I managed to run, maybe 5K, and then I felt it, and then after a bit more rest, it reduced to like 3K and then 1K, and so it really didn't feel like the rest helped.
It's such a weird disorder, because if you think of it like if you think of a muscle tear, right? You tear a muscle, you rest, it heals, it comes back, you come back, it's strong, right? Like, whilst OP just seems this like really weird, it's like inverse. You rest, it heals, but then you're weaker and you're worse for it every time. I think that's what really screws with mainstream kind of treatment for when it comes to OP, is that it's really the opposite of every other injury that we experience and we see in sort of as patients when they come to our door kind of thing, and you have to really flip the script. So obviously you'd seen a crap load of people. I didn't realize you'd seen that many people. And you got to a point where you were like, okay, this is bad enough that I'm going to contact some weirdo on the other side of the world and see what he thinks. So how was that process? Like, so you're reading my website, and especially at that point, like we put up a newer version, and then I'll put up a separate site for OP soon. But at that point, it was a mess. Like I just written stuff and just thrown it on the web just because I thought people needed to read it. And I was just like, people can, figure out what they need to from it. What was it like? What kind of was the thought process when you started reading this? And what kind of led you to being like, okay, I'm going to email this guy. I'm going to I'm going to talk to him. I want to get his opinion or his thoughts on this.
Well, it was actually the most comprehensive information I'd actually found about OP. I mean, I had obviously Googled it before, but none of the people I'd actually seen before had said I have OP, even though I thought I might have from reading on the internet. So actually, I found reading your website really interesting, and especially all the videos as well. They were very informative about the different factors that can cause OP. And I mean, I'd already had like a year and a half off exercise. I mean, I had nothing to lose, and I was quite amazed that you offered sessions over Skype. So I thought, why not give it a go?
Not fair. You did have something to lose. You had sleep to lose. So Elaine's obviously British, and so the time difference between Australia and Britain is not great. So what was 7 o'clock in the morning? We had to do sessions.
Yeah, it was pretty early.
So I'd say you lose some sleep. So you definitely had sleep to lose, but that was probably about it.
Yes.
All right, and so you found actually it was really interesting because when you shot me through, when I was like, shoot me through history of your exercise, and then you shot me through a detailed rundown with dates and times and amounts of exercise, including whether you would walk to work or whether you would ride to work or you'd cycle to work, and the distances that you would go and the time spent. And I was reading through it and just doing that. I was like, oh yeah, she's gonna get better. This is huge. This is easy. I was like, anyone who's this thorough will be able to follow the program step by step really easily. I was like, this will be simple. Even though your symptoms were kind like when you start getting the pubic bone pain, you're looking at stage 2, which is kind of further progressed OP. So as I read through your symptom profile, I was like, oh, okay, this is quite a serious case of OP. As I was reading through your highly detailed document, I was like, oh, she's gonna be fine. This is gonna be all right. Sometimes I get a feeling I'll have a client and I'll be like, okay, these symptoms are okay, but I'm like, oh geez, I'm worried about whether they're going to do their exercises enough, or I'm worried about whether they're going to be focused enough. I never really worried about that. I was like, oh, this is a kindred spirit. Anyone who's going to take this kind of detail and time to document everything is going to be thorough when they do their exercises. Okay, so we met up. We did a session kind of thing. How did you feel after that first session? Were you just overloaded with information? Were you like, okay, cool, this makes sense, I know what I'm doing? What did you take away after the first couple of sessions?
Well, there's definitely an information overload. You sent me, I think it started off with 45-minute videos going through presentations every week.
Yeah.
So it was, prior to the session, I would have to watch the video, try and understand all the information, and then be doing all your exercises as well before having the session. And it was really informative because there were all these different things that I'd never thought of. I'd never seen a proper kind of model of my pelvis before. So that was really useful. I had no idea what my pelvic floor looked like, even though I had been doing physio previously where they've been doing relaxation on my pelvic floor exercises, but they did not show me where my pelvic floor was, which would probably have been helpful.
I always find it so difficult trying to explain that, and it's really weird. So the pelvic floor model I have is a female one, right? So when I'm trying to explain to a male, but I've got a female pelvic floor, and I'm like, okay, let's imagine this, but remember you don't have these bits, and this is how this works. But yeah, it's funny because the pelvic floor kind of gets, and at least your physios was talking about relaxation. Most physios down here are just tighten your pelvic floor, which just exacerbates OP. But it's such a weird muscle. It's a really weird muscle. It's super important. Your pelvis won't work unless your pelvic floor is functioning correctly. And it's really weird to understand because it doesn't operate like a bicep operates. So yeah, I find the model as confronting as it is to see that's a pelvic floor right in front of you, of your face on a video, I do find that to be really helpful so that, yeah, you can get an idea where it is. But yeah, it's quite visual. All right, so you're going through the rehab process and stuff, and you're getting like asked to lift these heavy weights in a way that you've never been lifted before. Was there a bit where you were just like, where you hit a wall, where you were just like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. This exercise is just too hard, or this weight is too heavy, or I just don't get it. Like, was there a point where you were just like, I'm just going to like drop my bundle right
now? Yeah, there were many exercises which I thought, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to do that. In fact, probably most of them. Yeah. Some of them, I'd be able to practice a bit during the week, and then I get the hang of pretty quickly. But then others really did take like quite a few weeks to get the hang of. Yeah, it would. Yeah, some were faster than I expected, and some were a lot slower than I expected.
It's really interesting the way that works, because it comes down to the functional challenges that you bring in to the OP and the things that caused your OP. So for you, your core stability was pretty reasonable. Like you remember, like you did a lot of like the ab rollout, the breathing, the core breathing. Like you were good at that straight away, really good. And even the deadlift, like the pelvic movement, the basic squatting movements, you were really good at that really quickly. So anything where your legs were together, you were great. But the first thing like that I noticed when I tested you was when you lifted your leg, how much difficulty you had rotating that pelvis, and that's connected to the pelvic floor as well. And so the minute we transitioned from like that stage, from going from parallel leg movements at like stage 4 to like stage 5, stage 6, where you start looking at the split leg movements, that's when it was like, oh, okay, this is going to get hard. And that's when you like the split leg deadlift, the split leg kettlebell swings, the banded holds kind of things. That's when things got difficult and got hard, because those were the functional weaknesses that were really causing your OP to kind of begin with. Whilst those other ones, the exercises we did before, we kind of raced through because you were already good at that stuff already, and we just had to build a stronger foundation. But because you could deadlift, 60 kilos, and you could kind of kettlebell swing. What is your kettlebell was pretty heavy. Your kettlebell swing like 16 kilos, I think.
20.
20. Okay, yeah, that's right.
Wow. Yeah.
It's pretty good. So because you were already doing those heavy weights, you just had more like strength, so that when you got to the harder exercises, you had that strength to fall back on, which I think really got you through the more functionally challenging stuff that you kind of faced, which was great. Anyway, so last question I'll ask you, or last couple. How's your body feeling right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's like a completely different body. Most of the time, I don't even think about OP. I mean, I recently went on holiday to Madagascar, and I went trekking up, climbed a mountain on a 3-day hike, carrying heavy gear. Like that would not have been possible before, and definitely, yeah, I didn't have a hint of OP at all during that. I will sometimes feel it, and I do know that I have to be careful. And when I go running, I just have to be careful to build it up slowly, especially if I have just been on holiday and haven't been doing any running for a few weeks or any physio. So I just need to be aware of it. But apart from that, it's good.
You probably bring up a really important point that we should talk about as well, which is the idea that dysfunction at the pubic bone, that kind of like, those physiological changes that occur at the pubic bone, sort of the slight damage that's there, that actually takes a really long time to heal and stabilize. So the inflammation goes away reasonably quickly, but that damage can take, anywhere upwards from 12 months to 2 years to kind of heal. So when you fix OP, essentially what you're doing is you're moving in a way that's no longer overloading and irritating your adductors and your pubic bone. But if your movement patterns start to go back to it, so you go running and then you're in 2Ks of a run, and then you start to get fatigued and your technique gets floppy, and all of a sudden you start moving your pelvis badly, well, then you can irritate that damage again, and your body is basically going to let you know, hey, stop doing this, you're going to get bad again, it's going to get bad again. And so it'll give you that pain to be like, hey, don't do that. But essentially that, yeah, if you build it up slowly, if you're moving correctly, if you don't make the mistakes, that, yeah, there's absolutely nothing wrong and it's fine. And what you'll probably find is in about 12 months or 2 years, that'll stop happening because it'll heal, because it will have the chance to heal, because you won't be irritating as much. And at that point, then you truly don't have anything that resembles OP, because you'll essentially be like, okay, I can do whatever the hell I want, even if I'm stupid, I don't feel it. Well, that was everything that I wanted to ask. I guess the last thing I'd probably ask you is, if someone was thinking about doing the program or, yeah, giving it a go, what would your advice be to them?
Do it first before going around the houses with other physios and consultants and wasting like a year of your life not being able to do sport.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Elaine, for taking the time. And yeah, hopefully, guys, if you're watching this, you found it useful. And I will